It's been 2 weeks since I did the last garden tour, and it's that time of the year when things are growing really quickly. So there's a lot of new stuff to see in this garden tour. Starting with the very first of the cukes. So this is Puna Kheera. It's an Indian heirloom variety that I happened to find last year among the seed packets in a local nursery, and I was really happy to see it there. So I tried growing it, and it seemed to work pretty well in this comparatively cooler climate, and the seeds seem to be good for this year as well. And I'm seeing the very first couple of these cukes, which is very cool. So I'm looking forward to harvesting these soon and then eating them in salads and kheera raita. So good stuff. Other things are doing well too. This bean plant has been growing up the trellis, the metal trellis and the jute trellis that I had set up. Same for this side. This one's grown even more. It's gone beyond the jute trellis now, and it's trying to find other spaces to grow along. You can see it's gone all the way up to the metal post. And I've tried to provide as much vertical space as possible for these plants, and I think they're making full use of it. This corner has both things that I planted as seeds and also volunteers. So this sunflower, for instance, is a volunteer that's growing happily here. And I have this corner, which is also mostly volunteers. And this is really cool because I actually don't know what these are. I wouldn't know until they start producing flowers and fruits. So like I say in the little tag in the back, it's a mystery. But it's a good kind of mystery. These are also tomato plants. My guess is these two in this bag and the one behind that are cherry tomatoes, just from the leaf size and the quantity of leaves. And this seems to be a variety of a larger tomato. If you look at the two, they're both tomato plants, but the leaves are spaced differently. So that's a clue, and I'd like to know if my hunch is right. This is really interesting also because in this bag specifically, there are 3 volunteers here. So there are 2 tomatoes that are growing right towards the end of the bag, and right in the middle of those 2 tomatoes is this volunteer. It's becoming more and more evident that this is a cucumber, but again, until it starts flowering and producing fruit, I won't really know for sure. So for now I'm just supporting it by helping it grow up this trellis, and then I'm going to try and come back and fix it properly later, and we'll probably need to get a little bit longer before I can actually wind it up the trellis. But my hope is that it's going to grow up this trellis. I added some more jute strings to give it more strength to the structure, and then also provide more vertical space. So my hope is that this cucumber plant will grow along these trellises and then expand outward. I put in some bean seeds here, and they've all sprouted and they're growing well. They have been sending out these tendrils that are now growing up the fence. These are last year's dried bean stems. I tried to take off as many as I could, but I left these there. I didn't want to damage the trellis, and I figured that these just add some strength. I have another Puna Kheera plant growing there in the back, and I have one more growing right here. So if everything goes well, this whole space should be producing a lot of cucumbers, and I really like these cucumbers. I use them a lot in the kitchen in my meals, so that's something to look forward to. My baskets with the marigold plants in them are growing really well. No flowers yet, but they're definitely getting to the point where we should see some more action. So it's been hot and humid, so I removed these portable greenhouses from the beds and just put them in the side so they don't overheat and cause disease to the plants. Especially during the day, I keep them on the side. This year I've had so much success with squashes so far. Pretty much all the squash plants that I put in, and I either got them from the nursery as small plants or I grew them from seed myself. They've all seemed to be thriving. And I've been creating more vertical spaces by putting these structures up. I'm expecting some more stuff to be delivered today, and then I'll be able to create a similar vertical structure for this bed. But for now, everything's doing well. This is a cabbage. This is my first time growing cabbages successfully, and this is beginning to form what I believe is called a cabbage heart in there. Alright, so more stuff. This is a tomato plant that's grown as tall as the cage now, and it's now going beyond it. It might need additional support as it gets bigger. Lots of cilantro. All of this is volunteer that's flowering now, right next to a carrot that's also flowering. I actually let some of my carrots go to seed, and then I just use those seeds to grow more carrots. So this is another carrot. It's actually not a flower. The whole thing is not a flower. It's a cluster of flowers, and there's even a little pollinator in there. Several pollinators in there from what I can see. Just so pretty. I have lots of volunteer marigolds growing up in here. More cilantro. And again, it seems to be a favorite of pollinators, which I'm happy to see. So we need more pollinators for sure. I have some new potatoes, sprouts, potatoes that have now sprouted leaves growing in these bags. I have harvested 3 bags of potatoes so far, and I shared those videos in other posts. So some of the potatoes are doing well, but some of them seem to have either come towards the end of their life cycle, like here, where some of the leaves have yellowed and the others are still green. So I've been harvesting these if I see signs of disease or life cycles ending. But there are others in the back that are still doing very well. This whole space is overflowing. The nasturtiums are literally left the bed and overflowed into this space, and the nasturtiums tend to vine. So this vine, this is growing. Let's see if I can get a good shot here. It's growing all the way up to here, and it'll keep growing. And I'll try and find a way to trellis this as well, so it has more room to breathe and more vertical space. The pole beans here are looking pretty happy despite some of the damage in the leaves. They're sending out these tendrils also and growing all up the vertical trellis here. This part of the bed is the newest one, so therefore things are not growing as quickly. It does take some time for the soil to get established. So I have this basil plant that I had put in there that's struggling, but it's still sending out new leaves. And then this black cream tomato plant that I had put in there that's finally beginning to show signs of growing bigger. I put some okra seeds in grow pots, and once they sprouted, I've transferred them here. So these are 2 of those okra plants. I didn't have as much luck this year with okra seedlings because of the nursery that's closed, and I just couldn't find the seeds that I've used in the past. So I had to make do with this one packet of okra seeds I found in one of the local stores, and hopefully I will have some okra or bhindi or ladyfinger as we call them in India. So this is the flower bed. I actually cleared out some of these borage flower plants. They were growing so tall, and they've also snapped over because of the weight itself and the rain. It's good in a way because now the tomato plants have plenty of airflow at the bottom, and there we go. So it's definitely setting fruit. There are 3 of these tomato plants here, and I'm looking forward to some harvests with cherry tomatoes. The strawberries are growing pretty well. I harvested the whole bunch. They didn't even make it to the kitchen. I basically ate them as I was harvesting them, but they are ripening in good numbers. You can see I harvested a whole bunch from there. There's a nice big bunch growing over here as well. The heat had begun drying the peas, and then we had a wave of cooler weather, and those cool days brought the peas back to life. They've been sprouting new shoots, new flowers, and producing new fruit. It's not as sweet as the peas that grow in spring in the cooler weather, but they're still decent. I have a lot of basil growing in the garden now, either seedlings I brought in from the store or volunteers from last year's basil plants. This tomato is doing well too. It's putting out some blossoms finally, and hopefully as the pollination happens they'll start turning into fruit. This is also a volunteer tomato plant that I've put in this grow bag. Again, we'll see what kind of tomato it produces. The chives that I had put along the edges of the bed are growing really well, and so are the carrots. I've been harvesting chives and carrots and using them to make breakfast items, especially using Indian recipes, and it's very cool to be able to use fresh stuff from the garden in my meals every day. I'm using these different kinds of trellis systems to grow things vertically. Squash tend to spread out and occupy a lot of ground space, but with this system that I'm trying out, I'm helping them grow vertically instead, and that saves ground space. It creates better airflow, and then the plants can keep growing vertically like this one here, and when they start producing fruit, the fruit can hang from the trellises and not catch any kind of disease because it's touching the ground. These are some of the potato bags. They're just doing really, really well, and I think it might have something to do with being next to this lavender that's very popular among the bees right now. It's a lot of pollinators here. This melon is also doing well. It's definitely spreading out now. That's pretty. The sweet potatoes here in these 5 bags look really happy, and it's amazing when I think about the fact that these are from 2 sweet potatoes that I bought from the store that I never got to consume, and they sprouted, and I was able to watch YouTube videos and figured out how I could grow them in grow bags. This is an experiment, but I'm looking forward to harvesting, curing, and then storing them, and then later consuming them. The pepper plants are doing well too. I finally see a pepper in there, and I'm Looking forward to harvesting lots and lots of different kinds of peppers from all the different pepper plants growing in this space, in this part of the garden and other parts. So that's it. It's a hot and muggy day. I'm gonna go inside in a bit, but this is the garden today and how everything is growing so well. And again, this is gardening that I do in whatever spare time I have, using no fertilizers, no pesticides, using as many heirloom seeds as possible. And again, if I can do it, well, so can anybody. Highly recommend this.